I died once, and when I did, the person I loved most didn't even try to save me. The last thing I saw was Nathan Pierce, my fiancé, reaching for someone else, Rebecca Hale, his so-called childhood love. And me? I was left behind, crushed beneath the wreckage, forgotten. But fate is cruel, because now I am alive again. I woke up in my 17-year-old body, standing in the very place where it all began. Before the lies, before the betrayals, before I made the mistake of giving my heart to the wrong person. This time, I won't make the same mistake. This time, Nathan Pierce will never have my love. This time, I will rewrite my fate. When I opened my eyes, the world felt too bright, too sharp, too real. My hands, smooth, unscarred. My body, free of pain. The weight of death, the suffocating finality of my last breath, it was gone. I sat up in bed, my breath coming in short gasps. This isn't real. It couldn't be. Then I saw it. The old rose-patterned curtains, slightly faded from the years I had spent in this very room. The stack of college brochures on my desk, untouched. The calendar on the wall, circled in red, my 17th birthday coming up in 2 days. I had traveled back in time. My fingers tightened around the bedsheet as the memories crashed into me. I had loved Nathan Pierce, desperately, blindly. I had followed him like a shadow, believing he was my destiny. And where had that love gotten me? Beneath the rubble, dead, forgotten. A shudder passed through me. This time it would be different. I would make different choices. I would love someone else. I would make sure Nathan Pierce never had the power to break me again. The first test came sooner than I expected. It was lunchtime, and I was sitting in my usual spot in the courtyard, except this time I wasn't waiting for Nathan. But he still came looking for me. "Emma?" Nathan's voice was too familiar, too warm, like a poison I had once willingly swallowed. I turned, forcing myself to meet his gaze. He looked exactly as I remembered. Golden brown hair, tousled perfectly, blue eyes shining with confidence, the kind of guy who had always been used to winning. He sat beside me, grinning. "I've been looking for you all morning. You okay?" I knew what was coming next. In my past life, this was the moment Nathan had confessed to me, his words full of promises, dreams, and sweet lies. I had fallen for it before, but this time, I wasn't playing his game. "I'm fine," I said coolly, barely looking at him. Nathan frowned, clearly caught off guard by my tone. "Good. You sure? You seem different today." "Because I am. Maybe I just realized that some things aren't as important as I thought they were," I replied smoothly. He blinked. "What does that mean?" I turned to him fully now, meeting his eyes without hesitation. "It means I don't have time for distractions, Nathan, and I think you were one of them." His smile froze. "What?" He laughed, like he thought I was joking. In my past life, I would have blushed, stumbled over my words, tried to reassure him, but this time I simply stood up. I need to go. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I walked away from Nathan Pierce. I already knew who I wanted to find next. James Carter, a name that, in my past life, had meant almost nothing to me. But now I knew the truth. James was the boy who had once died for me. I just hadn't been paying attention. And this time, I would pay attention. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, Nathan Pierce was no longer the center of my world, and he could feel it. I saw it in the way his eyes followed me in the hallways, the way he lingered when I walked past him, the way his easy confidence faltered when I barely acknowledged his presence. In my past life, I had been his shadow, always waiting, always hoping. This time I made sure he was nothing more than a stranger in my story. The old Emma would have waited by Nathan's locker before class, giggling at his jokes, hanging on to his every word. But today I walked straight into Honors English and took a different seat, right next to James Carter. He barely reacted, keeping his focus on the textbook in front of him. But I knew this mattered, because in my past life, this seat had always been Nathan's. And James had sat alone, just like how he had died alone, not this time. "Hey," I said, casually placing my notebook on the desk. James didn't look up. "Hey," he muttered after a long pause. I studied him for a moment. Sharp jawline, dark hair, eyes that held too much weight for someone so young. James Carter was nothing like Nathan. Nathan was all golden warmth, the boy every girl wanted. James was the opposite, the quiet storm, the outsider, the guy no one truly noticed. Except me. "You don't talk much, do you?" I asked, tilting my head. James sighed, finally turning to glance at me. "I just don't see the point in useless conversations." I smiled. "Good thing I'm not useless, then." He blinked, clearly thrown off. Good. I wasn't planning on leaving him alone. Not this time. I could feel Nathan watching me. At lunch, when I chose to sit with a different crowd. After school, when I ignored his texts. In class, when I leaned slightly closer to James, listening to his rare, quiet words. In my past life, Nathan had never worried about me. Because he had owned me. He had known that no matter what he did, no matter how many times he put Rebecca Hale before me, I would always be there. But now, I wasn't his anymore. And that realization was driving him insane. By the end of the week, James Carter no longer ignored me. He didn't seek me out, didn't smile easily like other guys, but he listened. When I asked about his favorite books, he answered. When I joked about hating algebra, he smirked. When I sat next to him every morning, he stopped looking so surprised. Progress. Small but real. I didn't know if he trusted me yet, but I knew one thing. For the first time, James Carter wasn't alone, and neither was I. Nathan Pierce was not the type to lose. His whole life, he had been the golden boy. Charming, confident, adored. He got what he wanted when he wanted it, and until now, I had always been one of those things. But something had changed. I had changed, and Nathan wasn't handling it well. At first, he tried the charming approach. "Emma, you've been avoiding me," he said one afternoon, cutting in front of me as I walked to my next class. I glanced at him, unfazed. "I've been busy." His smile faltered, just slightly. "Too busy for me?" I gave him a polite, distant shrug. "I guess so." That should have been enough for him to get the message. But Nathan Pierce never took no for an answer, and soon his charm turned into persistence. Texts I never answered, flowers I left untouched, smiles I didn't return. He was pushing, testing, waiting for me to fall back into the role I had always played, the girl who followed, the girl who obeyed, the girl who belonged to him. But this time, I refused to play. The shift happened at homecoming night. Students were gathered in the gymnasium, decorated in gold and blue, music echoing through the speakers. Laughter and excitement filled the air. Nathan stood near the center of it all, effortlessly attracting attention, his confidence unshaken despite my coldness. I felt his eyes on me, watching, waiting. And that's when I made my move. I walked across the room, ignoring the stares, ignoring the whispers. And I stopped right next to James Carter. A hush spread through the crowd. James looked up from where he was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, completely uninterested in the party around him. Until now, Nathan was staring. Everyone was staring. "James," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A pause. A beat of silence. Then I reached out and took his hand. Nathan's expression shattered. The whispers turned into a roar. Did she just... Wait, wasn't she with Nathan? James Carter? Seriously? But I didn't care. For the first time, I had made my choice. And Nathan had just realized. It wasn't him. James didn't pull away, but he didn't squeeze my hand back either. His dark eyes flickered with something uncertain, unreadable. When the crowd's attention finally drifted elsewhere, he spoke. "You're making things complicated for yourself," he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. I held his gaze. "I can handle complicated." His jaw tightened. "Nathan isn't going to let this go." "I know." A pause. Then he sighed. "You should be careful." I smiled. "You should get used to having me around." And for just a second, I saw something soften in his eyes. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something. And that was enough. For now. Nathan didn't waste time. By the next day, I found James pinned against a locker, Nathan's grip tight around his collar. "Stay away from her." Nathan's voice was low, dangerous. James didn't even flinch. Instead, he smirked, a slow, amused smirk that only made Nathan angrier. "You sound jealous," James said casually. Nathan's grip tightened. "She was mine first," he growled. Something in James's eyes flickered, something sharp, something knowing. "You mean she was yours until she realized she deserved better?" Nathan swung first. James dodged, stepping back just before Nathan's fist could connect. I moved before I could think. "That's enough," I snapped, stepping between them. Nathan looked at me, his anger shifting into something almost desperate. "Emma, don't do this," he said, voice raw. "You're making a mistake." I stared at him for a long moment, and then I shook my head. "No, Nathan." My voice was calm, steady, final. The mistake was ever thinking I belonged to you. He looked like I had slapped him. I didn't wait for him to respond. Instead, I turned to James, grabbing his hand without hesitation, just like I had done at homecoming. This time, he didn't hesitate either. As we walked away, leaving Nathan standing there, furious, humiliated, defeated, I knew one thing for sure: this wasn't over. Not even close. Changing the future was harder than I thought. Some things were different. Nathan no longer owned me. James no longer sat alone. But some things refused to change. No matter how hard I tried, James Carter was still on a path toward destruction, and I wasn't sure if I could save him in time. It started with the bruises. They were subtle, fading marks along his knuckles, a shadow of blue beneath his jaw. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I did. I saw the way James winced when he moved too quickly, the way he kept flexing his hands like they ached. And I remembered. James Carter died because of a reckless, illegal street race. Not because he wanted to, but because he had no other choice. I needed answers, so I followed him. After school, after he thought no one was paying attention, I trailed him through the city streets. And that's when I found it. The underground racing scene. I saw the neon lights, the revving engines, the groups of guys exchanging money with tight, greedy smiles. And in the middle of it all, James, standing next to his old beat-up car, talking to a man who looked way too dangerous for a high schooler to be dealing with. My stomach dropped. I didn't need to hear their conversation to know what was happening. James was in debt, and just like before, he was willing to risk everything to get out of it. Not if I could stop him. But James's fate wasn't my only problem. Because someone else had started paying attention to him. Lauren Hayes. Beautiful, confident, rich. The kind of girl who could make a guy like James forget about a girl like me. I watched from across the cafeteria as she sat beside him, flashing a bright, flirty smile. James didn't push her away. And that scared me more than I wanted to admit, because in my past life I had never tried to save him. Maybe Lauren had. And maybe, just maybe, she had succeeded. I felt a strange, unfamiliar fear curl in my chest. What if, in this life, James Carter wasn't mine to save? I was so focused on James, I almost didn't see the danger coming from behind. Nathan was waiting for me. It happened after school when I was walking to my car. 1 second, the parking lot was full of students. The next, Nathan was beside me, steering me toward the empty side of the lot. "Emma, we need to talk," he said, his grip firm but not forceful. "Not yet." I yanked my arm free. "No, we don't." His jaw clenched. "Come on. You can't seriously believe that James Carter is a better option than me." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Nathan, the fact that you think this is a competition proves you never actually loved me." Something dark flashed across his face. "You weren't like this before," he murmured, stepping closer. "You used to be." "Used to be what?" I snapped. "Weak, easy to manipulate, so desperate for you that I would accept being second place?" He didn't deny it. Instead, he tried another tactic. "Emma," he said softly, reaching out to cup my cheek. "You know I still care about you. I made a mistake choosing Rebecca, but I can fix it. We can go back to how things were supposed to be." For a brief second, it felt like time folded in on itself. Because this moment had happened before. In my past life, when Nathan had broken my heart for the 100th time, when Rebecca had been in his arms, when I had been nothing but a backup plan, he had said these exact words. And like a fool, I had believed him. Not this time. I took a step back, shaking my head. "You're wrong, Nathan," I said quietly. "We were never meant to be." He froze, and in that moment, I saw it. The realization that I was truly, completely gone, that he had lost me, forever. And Nathan Pierce did not handle losing well, which meant this was far from over. As I drove home, my hands still shaking, my mind was racing with everything I had learned. James was still in trouble, Nathan was still dangerous, and my biggest fear? Maybe the past wasn't changing at all. Maybe it was just waiting for the right moment to repeat itself. And this time, I wasn't sure if I could stop it. Some things were bound to change, some things were never meant to change, and some things, no matter how hard I tried, were inevitable. James Carter's pain was one of them. It happened on a cold Monday morning. James didn't show up to school. By lunch, the whispers started. "Did you hear? His grandmother, she passed away last night." He was the only family she had left. I had known this day was coming. In my past life, James had lost her, just like this. And after that, he had nothing left to lose. I wasn't going to let history repeat itself, so I skipped my next class, found his address, and went to him. James's house was silent, not the peaceful kind, the hollow, suffocating kind. The door was unlocked. He didn't even care to lock it. I stepped inside cautiously. "James?" A long pause. Then, from the dimly lit living room, "You shouldn't be here." He was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. His hands were clenched into fists, his knuckles white. I ignored his words and sat down beside him. Close, but not too close. For a while we didn't speak. Then, I thought I had more time. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't slept. My chest tightened. "You did everything you could." He let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah? Then why does it feel like I did nothing?" I wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, that life wasn't fair, that no matter how many times I relived this moment, he always ended up here. Instead, I just stayed. Because sometimes staying is enough. Nathan Pierce was unraveling. It started with small things. The way he watched me too closely. The way he showed up where I didn't expect him. The way his smile stopped reaching his eyes. But then it got worse. He cornered me after school, grabbing my wrist before I could leave. "Why are you doing this?" His voice was low, almost pleading. I yanked my arm free. Doing what? Choosing him. I laughed, because what else could I do? "Nathan, it was never a choice." His jaw tightened. "That's not true." He swallowed hard. "You loved me." "Did I?" I asked, tilting my head. "Or was I just someone who didn't know how to walk away?" Nathan flinched, but instead of anger, I saw something else in his eyes, something sharp, something familiar, something that made my stomach twist. Because it wasn't just desperation, it was recognition, like he already knew the answer, like he had heard these words before. And that's when I realized Nathan remembered. I didn't want to believe it, but the signs were all there. His obsession, his desperation to keep me close, and most of all, his fear. Not of losing me, but of losing me again. Nathan Pierce had lived this life before, just like I had. And now, he was doing everything he could to change the ending, even if it meant destroying me in the process. Nathan had always been dangerous, but this was something else entirely. I had spent my second chance trying to stop James from dying, but now I had a different fear. Because for the first time I wondered, was I the one who wasn't going to survive this time? No matter how hard I tried, fate refused to be rewritten. I had changed so much, distanced myself from Nathan, chosen James instead, but somehow we had still ended up here, on the edge of disaster. And this time, I wasn't sure if I could stop it. James Carter was not reckless. He was quiet, observant, strategic, but desperation makes people do stupid things. And when I found out he had entered an illegal street race to pay off his debts, my blood ran cold. This was how he died before. I raced to the warehouse district, where the underground races were always held. Engines roared in the distance, the scent of burnt rubber thick in the air. The crowd was already forming, neon lights casting eerie shadows against the pavement. And there, standing by his car, was James. I shoved through the crowd and grabbed his arm. "Don't do this," I pleaded. He didn't flinch. "I have to." "You don't." My fingers tightened. "James, you don't have to prove anything." His dark eyes flickered. "It's not about proving anything, Emma. It's about surviving." My heart twisted. I had saved him from so much. But I couldn't save him from being poor, from feeling like he had no choice. And that's when the real nightmare started. Because from behind me, Nathan Pierce stepped forward. "I'll race him instead," Nathan announced, loud enough for the whole crowd to hear. A murmur spread through the onlookers. I turned, my breath catching. Nathan stopped, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at James. His gaze was sharp, calculating. "You and me," he said, stepping closer. "One race, no rules." James' jaw clenched. "And what do I get if I win?" Nathan smirked. "Emma." The crowd erupted. My stomach dropped. James' hands balled into fists. "She's not a prize to be won." Nathan tilted his head. "Then why are you afraid to race me?" James's pride wouldn't let him walk away. And Nathan knew it. I grabbed James' left arm again. "Please," I begged. "This is what he wants." James looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a second I thought he might say no. But then he nodded. "Fine," James said. "Let's race." And I knew I had lost. Engines rumbled like thunder. 2 cars lined up at the start, headlights slicing through the night. Nathan, calm and smug in his sleek black Mustang. James, cold and silent in his beaten-up Charger. I stood at the edge of the track, my heart hammering. I had seen this before. I had lived this before. In my past life, this was the moment James Carter died, and I was about to watch it happen again. The flag dropped, and they were gone. They tore through the streets at breakneck speed, tires screeching against asphalt. Nathan took the lead early, his car faster, smoother. But James was relentless. Every turn, every narrow escape, he fought for it. I watched, helpless, as they raced toward the final stretch. In my past life, this was where James lost control, where his car slammed into the railing, where he never walked away. And then it happened. Nathan swerved, trying to cut James off. But James was ready this time. At the last second, he spun the wheel, executing a perfect drift that sent him surging ahead. Nathan's car skidded, barely avoiding a crash, and James crossed the finish line first. Alive. Alive. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. He had done it. He had survived. Nathan stepped out of his car, furious. His hands trembled as he looked at James, then at me. "You were supposed to lose," he hissed. James smirked, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Guess I'm not good at following your script." Nathan's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered toward me. "You still love me?" he said, as if trying to convince himself. I took a step closer, not with fear, but with certainty. "No, Nathan," I said, my voice steady. "I never did." Something inside him snapped. I could see it in his face, the realization that no matter how many times he relived this life, no matter how many chances he thought he had, he would never have me, and he would never beat James Carter. I turned away, stepping toward James, and as Nathan stood there watching us, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Losing should have been enough. Nathan should have walked away. He should have accepted defeat. But people like Nathan Pierce don't know how to lose, and that's what made him dangerous. For days after the race, he was everywhere. I saw him in the hallways, standing too close, watching too carefully. I felt his presence behind me in the parking lot, waiting. I heard his name whispered by students who had witnessed his downfall. "Did you see the race?" Nathan lost. To James Carter, of all people. And Emma? She walked away from him like he was nothing. That was the part that killed him the most, not the race. Not the humiliation. Me. I had chosen someone else, and Nathan Pierce was not the kind of man who accepted being forgotten. It was late evening when he finally made his move. I had stayed behind after school, finishing an assignment in the library. By the time I left, the sun was already setting, the campus mostly empty. That's when I saw him. Standing by my car, waiting. I didn't turn back. I refused to show fear, but as I approached, his voice cut through the quiet. "We need to talk," I sighed. "No, Nathan, we don't." His jaw tightened. "You can't just ignore me, Emma." I unlocked my car door. "Watch me." His hand slammed against the door, holding it shut. I froze. My heart didn't race. I wasn't afraid of him. Not anymore, but I was tired. Tired of this game, tired of the past, tired of him. "Nathan," I said slowly, "let go." His fingers curled against the metal, shaking. "Tell me you don't love me," he whispered. I stared at him, and then, with absolute clarity, I told him the truth. "I never loved you." His breath hitched. I could see it, the way his entire world collapsed in real time. "You did," he said, like he could rewrite the past if he just said it enough times. "You did, Emma. In our last life, you." I took a step closer. "I never loved you." His eyes darkened, his hands clenched. For a second, just a second, I thought he might break, that he might finally let me go. But then his expression shifted, the heartbreak vanished, and in its place, something cold, something calculated. "You'll regret this," he murmured. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. And that's when I knew. Nathan Pierce was planning something desperate, something dangerous. And this wasn't over. Not yet. Nathan Pierce was never the type to walk away, and he wasn't about to start now. For days, he was nowhere to be found. No messages, no sudden appearances, no lingering stares from across the room, but I wasn't relieved, because I knew Nathan wasn't gone. He was waiting. And when he finally returned, he wouldn't come back empty-handed. It happened on a night too quiet to be normal. I had been on edge all day, my instincts screaming that something was coming. So when I pulled into my driveway and saw a figure standing by my front door, I wasn't surprised. Nathan? Waiting. I didn't turn off the engine right away. For a moment I just sat there gripping the wheel, watching him through the windshield. I could have driven away, but I didn't. Because deep down, I needed to hear the truth, even if I already knew it. "You knew, didn't you?" I said the moment I stepped out of the car. Nathan exhaled like he had been holding his breath for years. "Yes." I crossed my arms. "How long?" His jaw tightened. "Since the day I saw you again." I felt something heavy settle in my chest, because that meant he had known all along, that every time he had looked at me, every time he had fought for me, he wasn't fighting for the girl standing in front of him. He was chasing a ghost. "I made a deal," Nathan admitted, voice hollow. A sharp, bitter laugh slipped from my lips. "Of course you did." His gaze darkened. "I had to. You died, Emma." I flinched, because for the first time he had said it out loud. I had died, and he had let me. His fists clenched at his sides. I spent a lifetime regretting it, knowing that I chose Rebecca instead, that I let you. He swallowed hard, and then I woke up, back here, 17 again, with a second chance. I stared at him. "And you thought that if you could win me this time it would fix everything?" Nathan's expression twisted. "I thought it meant we were meant to be." My breath caught, because now I finally understood. Nathan hadn't just been obsessed with me. He had been obsessed with rewriting his guilt, trying to undo the worst mistake of his life. But what he hadn't realized was, I wasn't meant to be his redemption. "There's something else," Nathan murmured, running a hand through his hair. His fingers were shaking. "I didn't know it at first," he admitted, "but fate doesn't just give second chances for free." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" Nathan lifted his head, his blue eyes haunted. "It took something from me." The wind howled through the trees, cold and sharp. "I don't have long, Emma." His voice was quiet now. "My time is running out." The weight of his words hit me all at once. He had bargained with fate, and in return, his life had been shortened. A slow, creeping dread settled in my stomach, because this time, Nathan Pierce was the one who wasn't going to survive. I should have felt relief. After everything he had done, the manipulation, the obsession, the desperation, I should have wanted this. But I didn't, because at the end of the day, Nathan wasn't my enemy. He was just a boy who had made a mistake, and now he was paying for it. I took a slow step forward. "You can't undo the past," I whispered. Nathan closed his eyes, his breath unsteady. "I know. And you can't make me love you." He flinched. "I know that, too." A silence stretched between us. For the first time, Nathan looked small, like he was finally letting go. "You deserved better," he murmured. I held his gaze. We both did. Nathan exhaled shakily, then took a step back. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there watching the night swallow him whole, feeling something inside me finally settle. Nathan Pierce had been the ghost of my past, and now he was fading. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was free. But this wasn't the end, because fate wasn't finished yet, and soon it would come to collect. Fate always takes its due. Nathan Pierce had bargained for a second chance, but second chances come at a cost. And now his time was running out. At first, no one noticed. Nathan had always been the picture of strength, athletic, confident, untouchable. But then the signs started appearing, the dark circles under his eyes, the way he swayed slightly when he stood too fast, the weight loss as if something inside him was eating him alive. Then came the real warning signs. A sudden nosebleed during football practice, a violent coughing fit that left him gasping for breath, a moment in the hallway when he stumbled, barely catching himself against the lockers. People started whispering, "Is he sick? I heard he collapsed last weekend. Maybe it's just stress." But deep down, Nathan already knew the truth. Because this wasn't just an illness. This was the price of changing fate. His parents took him to every specialist they could find. They ran tests, scans, blood work, but the results were always the same. There's nothing physically wrong with you. Your body is shutting down on its own. We don't understand it. And that's when Nathan finally understood. This wasn't a disease. It was a countdown, a slow, inevitable expiration. Because no matter how many times he had tried to rewrite destiny, fate had already decided when his story would end. He tried for a while to fight it, but then came the day when he could barely stand without shaking, the day when even looking at Emma Caldwell felt pointless, because he finally saw it. She had never belonged to him, not in this life, not in the last, not in any lifetime at all. Nathan had spent 2 lives trying to force love into existence, but love had never been his to claim. And now he was out of time. On the night Nathan Pierce died, no one was there. His parents were in another room, speaking in hushed voices about more treatments, more doctors, more hope. His phone sat beside him, dark and silent. No messages, no missed calls, no one looking for him. And for the first time he understood true loneliness. Not the kind that comes from being alone in a room, but the kind that comes from realizing you were never truly loved, not the way you wanted to be, not by the person you wanted most. A bitter, broken laugh escaped his lips. "I did this to myself." He closed his eyes, and just like that, Nathan Pierce was gone. By the time people found out, it was too late. The whispers spread, but they were hollow, distant. "Did you hear? Nathan Pierce, he's gone. I thought he was just sick. I didn't know it was serious." It's weird, right? No cause, no explanation. It's like he just faded. And Emma? When she heard the news, she simply stood there. No tears, no shock, just the quiet, inescapable truth. Nathan Pierce had died the way he had lived. Alone, obsessed, trying to control something that was never his to begin with. And for the first time, Emma felt something she never thought she would. Pity. In the end, Nathan had never been a monster. Just a boy who wanted too much, a boy who tried to steal fate instead of accepting it, and like all thieves, he paid the price. The past no longer had power over me. For so long I had been trapped in a cycle of regret, loss, and inevitable tragedy. But not anymore, because this time I had finally won. Years passed. Nathan became nothing more than a fading memory, a name I rarely heard and a story no one bothered to tell. And James? James Carter became my future. We left the past behind, together. He built his own company, Carter Enterprises, a business that started small but grew into something powerful, something untouchable. And me? I found peace. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I wasn't chasing or running. I was simply living. James never needed grand gestures or poetic promises. His love was steady, unwavering, real. I felt it in the way he reached for my hand absent-mindedly, in the way he always listened, even when I said nothing at all, in the way he looked at me, like he knew exactly who I was and still chose me anyway. This was what love was supposed to feel like. Not a battlefield, not a game to be won, not an obsession, just 2 people moving forward together. It was a quiet afternoon when it happened. James and I were sitting outside, the autumn wind cool against my skin, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air, and then I felt it. A breeze, light and fleeting, a whisper of something familiar. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I thought I could hear Nathan's voice carried by the wind. It's over now. When I opened my eyes, the weight in my chest was gone. Nathan had finally let go, and so had I. James reached for my hand, fingers warm against mine. "You okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. I turned to him, taking in the man who had always deserved my love. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I smiled without hesitation. I am now. And as I leaned into James, feeling the warmth of the present, I knew this was the ending I was always meant to have. And this time, it was mine to keep. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss any future content.